He locked my wife in the garage for 3 days. I came back from a business trip expecting a quiet evening, maybe a cold beer and some peace. Instead, I heard faint cries coming from the garage. When I opened the door, I found my wife, crying, exhausted, bruised, and when she whispered, "Our son did it," something inside me shattered. That night, betrayal turned into revenge. I pulled into the driveway just before 5, briefcase in hand, already thinking about that beer waiting in the fridge. 35 years as a CPA can drain a man, but the sight of a silver sedan parked in my spot stopped me cold. It was my son Brent's car. He never came by without calling first. Before I even reached the door, it opened. My wife Della stood there smiling, too wide, too forced. "Clark, perfect timing," she said. "We have something incredible to share." Brent was sitting on the couch, hands clasped tightly between his knees. He barely looked at me. The coffee table was covered in glossy brochures, sample bottles, and income charts filled with fake promises. "What is this?" I asked. Della gestured proudly, like she was hosting a game show. "A ground floor opportunity in the wellness industry. Multi-level marketing done right. It's a chance to build real wealth, Clark." I picked up one of the brochures. Before and after photos, exponential growth charts, testimonials from strangers. "How much?" I asked. 45,000, she said casually. "It's an investment in Brent's future." In our future. I looked at my son. He still couldn't meet my eyes. "Let me see the business plan." We moved to the kitchen table. Della spread out documents, talking nonstop about revolutionary products and financial freedom. I put on my glasses and started reading. Within minutes, I saw the truth. 70% of their so-called income came from recruiting new distributors, not selling products. Every new recruit had to buy $3,000 worth of inventory up front. Only 2% ever made a profit. I started calculating. If each recruit brought in 6 more and that pattern continued, you'd exhaust the population of Florida in 7 cycles. "This is a pyramid scheme," I said flatly. Della's smile hardened. "That's what people say when they don't understand modern business." "I understand numbers," I said quietly. "And they don't lie." Her tone sharpened. "You never support us. You sit on your money while we try to build something. You couldn't even help with our wedding." I stood, calm and deliberate. "That's not true." "Oh, really?" She snapped. "Name one time you've helped without making us feel like beggars." I walked to my office, came back with a manila folder, and laid it on the table. Years of documentation, bank statements, canceled checks, and loan agreements. March 2022, $30,000 for your house down payment. July 2022, $18,000 for your boutique inventory. December 2023, $15,000 for Brent's car. April 2024, $17,000 for your so-called investments. I arranged the papers in a neat line. $80,000. Not one payment, not one thank you. Silence. Della stared at the papers like they were lies. Brent stood slowly but said nothing. "We should go," he muttered. Della grabbed her things, knocking brochures to the floor. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I watched them leave. Their car sped off, tires squealing. I stood in the doorway until the taillights disappeared. Inside, the kitchen table looked like a battlefield, proof of 5 years I'd spent trying to help a son who no longer respected me. I sat down and stared at the documents. The numbers told a story I had been too stubborn to see. This wasn't family anymore. It was a transaction, and one that had been running in the red for years. No more funding failure. No more buying silence and calling it love. When my wife Martha came home that evening, she took one look at me and knew something had happened. I told her everything, calmly, like I was presenting a client's report. She listened, quiet at first, then sat across from me. "You did the right thing," she said finally. "This isn't the first time Della's dragged Brent into one of her fantasies. You've been bailing them out for years," she pointed at the calendar. "They've missed birthdays, holidays, dinners, every excuse in the book. When was the last time Brent called just to talk?" I couldn't answer. Martha softened. "He's still our son, Clark, but he's made his choices." She was right. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning felt ordinary. Coffee, toast, packing for my 2-day business trip. Martha handed me my travel mug. "Text me when you land," she said. "I always do." I kissed her forehead and left, feeling strangely peaceful. I didn't know that would be the last normal moment for a long time. While I sat in conference rooms talking about tax codes and depreciation schedules, Martha went to the garage for canned tomatoes. She never saw Brent coming. He stepped out of the shadows, his face pale and desperate. "Brent, what are you doing here?" she asked. He pushed her hard against the workbench, then walked to the keypad on the interior door, the same code he'd known since he was 17. He locked both doors. "Brent, stop." "What are you doing?" He took her phone. His voice was flat, rehearsed. "You'll stay here until Dad agrees to the loan. Della needs that money. This ends when he writes the check," Martha pleaded. "Your father's in Orlando. He won't be back for 2 days. Then you've got 2 days to think about how stubborn you both are," she begged. She reasoned. She screamed. But he was gone. 3 days. 3 days locked inside a Florida garage in August heat. No water, no food, no way to call for help. She tried to break the glass, but it was reinforced. She screamed until her voice gave out. By the time I came home Saturday afternoon, she was barely alive. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Her car was in the driveway, newspapers piled by the gate. Then I heard it, weak, rasping cries coming from behind the garage door. My hands shook as I punched in the code. The door opened. Martha was collapsed against the wall, her face streaked with tears and dirt, her lips cracked and bleeding. I dropped beside her. "Martha, can you hear me?" Her whisper was barely audible. "Clark, Brent did this." Those words froze everything. I called 911, voice trembling. "My wife's been locked in our garage for 3 days. While I waited for help, I gave her water, tiny sips at a time. She gripped my hand weakly. "He waited until you left. Wanted to make you change your mind about the money." I stared at her bruised arms, her trembling body. "My son did this." Something inside me went cold, still, absolute. As the ambulance pulled up outside, one thought burned through the numbness. Brent was going to pay for what he'd done, every single thing. 3 newspapers lay scattered at the end of the driveway, their plastic sleeves glinting in the afternoon sun. Martha always brought them in. The front windows were shut tight despite the August heat. A small detail, but enough to twist something inside me. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I parked, grabbed my overnight bag, and walked to the front door. "Martha, I'm home." Silence. Complete, unnatural silence. The house felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. No television. No footsteps. No signs of anyone living here. Just stillness, thick, heavy, and suffocating. I moved from room to room, calling her name. The living room looked untouched. The bedroom was still made with the same bedding I'd left behind. The kitchen, the same dirty dishes from my departure breakfast, her coffee mug still on the counter with dried residue at the bottom. Her phone charger sat plugged in by the toaster. But her phone was gone. I stood in the kitchen, forcing myself to think logically. If she was visiting a friend, she would have texted. If it were an emergency, she would have called. But the newspapers, the sealed windows, that silence, none of it made sense. Then I heard it, a faint broken sound from the direction of the garage. Not quite crying, not quite calling. Just sound. I ran. My hands shook as I punched the code into the interior keypad. The first attempt failed, hit 5 instead of 6. The second time it clicked open. The door swung inward. A wall of heat slammed into me. Had to be 105 degrees inside. The air smelled like metal and sweat and something far worse. Martha was collapsed against the wall just past the doorway. Her face streaked with dried tears and dirt. Her lips cracked and bleeding. Her eyes barely focused. She wore the same clothes she'd had on Thursday morning, now filthy and soaked with sweat. Bruises marked her arms and knees. The garage reeked of urine and desperation. My knees almost gave out, but instinct took over. I dropped beside her, fingers trembling as I checked her pulse. Weak, but there. "Come on, Martha." "I'm here," I dialed 911, voice shaking but steady. "This is Clark Henderson. I need an ambulance at 4247 Oleander Drive. My wife has been imprisoned in our garage, approximately 72 hours without water. She's conscious but severely dehydrated." The dispatcher asked questions. I answered automatically while running to my car for a water bottle. Back inside, I knelt beside her, helping her take small sips. Her hands trembled too much to hold it. Water spilled down her chin, but she kept drinking. Slowly, I said. Small sips. Her voice was shredded, barely a whisper. Brent did this. Everything stopped. What? She coughed, drank again, each word broken and painful. He came after you left. Locked me in. Wanted money. The story came out in fragments. Thursday evening, the shove, the keypad lock, her phone taken. His words echoing in that small, sweltering space. You'll stay here until Dad agrees. I listened, feeling the blood drain from my face. My son. My son did this. 8 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. 2 paramedics, Santos and Rodriguez, rushed in with gear. Santos dropped to his knees beside Martha, checking vitals. I stepped back, forcing myself to breathe as they worked. Blood pressure cuff, pulse oximeter, pen light in her eyes, IV fluids started immediately. Rodriguez began photographing the scene, the door lock, the condition of the garage, standard protocol for suspected elder abuse. Santos looked up at me. We're taking her to Tampa General. You can ride with us. In the ambulance, I sat beside her gurney, gripping her free hand, the one without the IV. It felt frail and weightless. Santos checked her vitals every few minutes. She's stable, he said quietly. But this was close. Another day and we'd be having a different conversation. His words hit harder than I expected. My son nearly killed her. Tampa General's ER was organized chaos. Voices, footsteps, monitors beeping. Dr. James Wilson, mid-50s with calm eyes and quick hands, took charge. He asked everything. How long she'd been trapped, if she had water, the temperature in the garage. I answered one fact at a time, like I was reading someone else's nightmare. His tone stayed clinical but grim. Severe dehydration, stage 2. Bruises consistent with restraint or falls. Possible mild heat stroke. We're admitting her for fluids and observation. At her age, complications can develop quickly. I sat in the waiting area, staring at the wall while they moved Martha upstairs. And that's when the full weight hit me. My son, the boy I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, helped through college, had locked his own mother in a garage and left her to die. The rage that filled me wasn't fiery or loud. It was quiet, heavy, cold, something that didn't burn out. A nurse approached with paperwork. Mr. Henderson, your wife is settled in room 412. You can see her now. Martha looked small in the hospital bed. IV lines, heart monitor, color slowly returning to her face. I sat beside her and took her hand. Go home, she whispered. Do what you need to do. I kissed her forehead. I'll be back in the morning. Her eyes met mine. He's still our son. I paused at the door. He stopped being our son when he locked you in that garage. The evening sun painted my driveway orange when I pulled in around 6:30. From the outside, the house looked normal, quiet, peaceful. Inside, the air was stale. I didn't turn on any lights. I walked straight to the garage and stood in the doorway. The smell still lingered, sweat, fear, and pain. I began taking photographs. The keypad lock. The high windows she'd tried to reach. The concrete floor where she collapsed. The marks on the door where she'd pounded for help. Every detail documented. I checked the temperature, still 93 degrees at 7 p.m. I created a folder on my phone. Evidence, August 2025. 30 minutes later. I was driving to Tampa Police Headquarters. Detective Karen Morales met me in the Family Crimes Unit. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, composed but empathetic. She listened without interrupting, typing notes on her tablet. When I finished, she asked quietly, Your son had access to your home? Knew the garage code? Yes. You have evidence? I showed her the photos. She nodded. This is criminal, Mr. Henderson. Florida law treats elder abuse and unlawful imprisonment as felonies. We'll process everything tonight. She followed me home in an unmarked car, wearing latex gloves, carrying an evidence kit. She rephotographed everything, dusted the keypad for prints, mine, Martha's, Brent's. She confirmed the lock couldn't be opened without the code. When did you last change it? She asked. Never. It's been the same for 10 years. Only family knows it, she made notes. Any security cameras nearby? I remembered the Johnsons across the street. Tom installed a Ring doorbell last year. Morales walked over. Tom answered, immediately cooperative. Within minutes, he pulled up footage. Thursday, 7:14 p.m. Brent's silver sedan pulling into my driveway. 7:17 p.m. Brent entering through the front door. 7:35 p.m. Brent leaving. Perfect timestamps. Tom transferred the video to her tablet. Whatever you need. Martha's a good woman. Back at my house, Morales said, I'll contact your son tomorrow. Based on your wife's testimony, medical records, and this footage, we have probable cause. He'll likely face charges for false imprisonment and elder abuse. These are serious felonies. How soon? I asked. If he cooperates, we'll arrest him by Monday. If not, I'll get a warrant. After she left, I sat in the dark living room, unable to move. Brent had planned it, waited until I was gone, locked her in, took her phone. He knew exactly what he was doing. 4 missed calls from him blinked on my phone. 3 unread texts. Friday, 2 p.m. Friday, 6 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. Saturday, 1 p.m. Dad, call me when you can. Dad, I really need to talk. This is important. Please call. He'd been texting while his mother lay dying in that garage. Was it guilt? Or was he checking to see if I'd come home early? At 10:47 p.m., my phone rang again. Brent. I stared at the screen as it rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, I answered. Hello. Dad, finally, he said. His voice shaky, nervous, rehearsed. I've been trying to reach you. When the phone rang, I already knew who it was. Brent. The sound of his voice sent a chill through me. Hello, Dad, he said softly, like nothing had happened. Finally, I didn't answer. The silence between us was heavy, years of disappointment compressed into a single breath. He exhaled, almost amused. You always taught me that every mistake has a cost. Well, I guess I just learned that lesson. I looked out the window. The ambulance lights had faded, but their reflection still pulsed faintly across the wet driveway. Where are you? I asked. Does it matter? His tone was calm, practiced. You win, Dad, you always do. But tell me, how does it feel knowing you drove your own family away? I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. You're not the victim here, he continued. You made me this way. You made me believe that love was just a transaction, so I turned it into one. He paused. Mom's fine, right? I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted you to listen. For a moment, I almost believed him, but then I saw Martha's bruised arms again, the marks his hands had left. I spoke quietly. Don't call this house again. Then I ended the call. The police found his car 2 days later, abandoned outside an old storage facility 20 miles from town. Inside, they discovered dozens of boxes, empty supplement bottles, business brochures, and a stack of unopened letters addressed to me. Every envelope was the same, request for additional funding. He'd written them all, stamped them but never sent them. It was like he'd been preparing his argument for months, collecting evidence for his own downfall. The detective looked at me carefully. We'll find him, Mr. Lawson. He won't get far. I nodded, but deep down I knew Brent wasn't running. He was waiting. 3 weeks passed. Martha slowly recovered, but she spoke less. Sometimes I'd find her staring at the garage door, eyes unfocused, like she was reliving those days in the dark. I tried to make her tea, to talk, to fix things. But some silences aren't meant to be filled. Then, one morning, I found a small brown envelope in our mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, standing by Martha's hospital bed the night she was rescued. The angle was from outside the window. Someone had been there, watching. Behind the photo, a note in Brent's handwriting. You taught me patience, Dad. I'm just returning the lesson. That's when I stopped waiting for the police. If he wanted a lesson, I would teach him one final time. I started by calling my attorney. We froze every joint account, every trust, every insurance policy with his name attached. Then I called the brokerage firm and initiated a security hold on his access. Within 48 hours, Brent Lawson no longer existed on paper. His credit cards were declined. His assets frozen, his name flagged for fraud. I didn't need to chase him. I just needed to erase him, systematically, quietly, completely. Every time he tried to access something I'd built for him, he'd be met with silence. The same silence he'd forced on his mother, and when he realized that silence wasn't just absence, it was punishment, he'd understand the meaning of consequence. 2 months later, a small box arrived at our doorstep. No label, no note. Inside was Brent's watch. The one I gave him when he graduated college. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an apology. It was acknowledgement. Martha looked at it for a long time. "What do we do now?" she whispered. I placed the watch back in the box and closed the lid. "Now," I said quietly, "we move on. But we don't forget." I carried the box to the garage, the same place he'd turned into a prison, and set it on the shelf. Then I closed the door and locked it. For good this time. If you like this story, subscribe to Silent Revenge, because sometimes silence isn't forgiveness. It's the final act of justice. "I don't want to see him," Martha said quietly. "Not at the hearing tomorrow. Not if he comes here, not ever. He's not my son anymore." Her voice was steady, cold, final. She had thought this through. I reached across the table, took her hand. "You won't have to see him. I'll handle everything. What if he tries to contact me? There's a no-contact order as part of his bail. If he violates it, he goes back to jail." She nodded, a trace of relief crossing her tired face. That evening, my attorney, Richard Stone, called to prepare me for Monday's hearing. He explained the process: probable cause, evidence presentation, the likely outcome. "The evidence is overwhelming," he said. "The judge will almost certainly bind him over for trial. Will I need to speak?" "No, you're there as family support." Martha's statement is already on record. After we hung up, I laid out my clothes for court: dark slacks, a white shirt, a navy tie. Professional but understated. Martha stood in the doorway watching. "You don't have to go," she said softly. "I do," I replied. "I want to see his face when he realizes how deep he's gone." Tomorrow, I'd see my son in court for the first time since it all began. I arrived at the Hillsborough County Courthouse at 8:30 a.m., passed through security, and took the elevator to the 4th floor, courtroom 4C. They were already there, Brent and Della, sitting on a wooden bench, whispering to each other. Brent looked smaller somehow. His suit was too big, borrowed, and wrinkled. His jaw was unshaven. When our eyes met, his face drained of color. He looked away almost instantly. Della noticed and glared at me. I walked past them without a word, sat across the hall, pulled out my phone, and waited. At 9:02, the bailiff opened the doors. "Case number 2025 CF Lunu 847, State of Florida versus Brent Michael Henderson." Judge Patricia Morrison, a calm, commanding woman in her 50s, presided. The prosecutor, Rachel Torres, stood. "The state is ready, Your Honor." Brent's public defender, Sarah Chen, followed hesitantly. "The defense is ready, Your Honor." Torres began her presentation with precision. She read Martha's sworn statement. "I was locked in my garage by my son, Brent Henderson, for approximately 72 hours without access to food, water, bathroom facilities, or any means of communication. Then came the medical records: 4 liters of IV fluid, severe dehydration, heat exposure, contusions. The doctor's note: another 24 hours and the patient would likely have died. Next, the photographs, the garage, the lock, the empty concrete floor where she had collapsed. And finally, the Ring doorbell footage, 7:14 p.m., Brent's car arriving. 7:17, him entering the house. 7:35, leaving 15 minutes of evidence. Enough to destroy him. When the defense tried to argue intent, Judge Morrison cut her off. "Counselor, your client locked a 61-year-old woman in a garage for 3 days. The medical records show she nearly died. Intent is not the issue here." Sarah Chen sat down, defeated. Brent's eyes stayed down the entire time. When Martha's statement was read, his jaw tightened. When the photos came up, his knuckles turned white. But he never once looked at me. "Mr. Henderson," the judge said, "stand." He stood shakily. "I find there is more than sufficient probable cause. You are bound over for trial. Trial date, September 15th, 2025 at 9:00 a.m. Bail conditions remain in effect, including the no-contact order. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," he whispered. The gavel came down. 27 minutes total. I stood, nodded to Torres, and walked out. Behind me, I heard Della's voice, sharp, angry, desperate. "This is insane." She was fine. I didn't look back. In the car, my phone rang. It was Stone. "They were served," he said. "Civil complaint right outside the courthouse." "How did they take it?" Della cried. Brent just stood there, completely stunned. Both cases hit within 30 minutes. Perfect timing. That evening, my phone rang again, an unknown number. I answered. Clark, it's Della. Please don't hang up. We need to talk. Like adults. Like family. I said nothing. We want to apologize, she continued. We'll apologize to Martha. Whatever you need, just please stop the lawsuits. I can't, I said evenly. The criminal case is the state's. I don't control that. You're going to destroy us. She snapped. We have nothing. Our lease is ending. Brent's facing trial. Please just stop. You're facing the consequences of your own actions, I said quietly. How can you be so heartless? I'm not heartless, I said. I'm holding your husband accountable for nearly killing my wife. She's fine. He didn't try to kill her. A judge, a prosecutor, and a doctor disagree, I replied. Goodbye, Della. Then I hung up and blocked the number. That night, Martha asked how the hearing went. Probable cause found. Trial set for September 15th. Did he look sorry? I paused, choosing my words. He looked scared. That's not the same thing, she nodded. That night, she slept soundly for the first time since the rescue. I sat beside her, knowing justice was finally moving. Thursday morning, an email arrived from the investigator. Urgent, housing development. Brent and Della's landlord had issued a lease non-renewal notice. Their lease expired September 15th, the day of the trial. He wouldn't rent to tenants with felony charges. I forwarded the message to Stone. Another pressure point activated. Over the next few days, the updates kept coming. Rejected applications, denied rentals, background checks failing. By Sunday, 6 rejections in a row, then a neighbor's report, shouting through the walls Thursday night. Della's voice, furious. This is your fault. You couldn't convince your own father. You've ruined everything. Their alliance was cracking. Saturday afternoon, my phone rang again. Tampa number. Dad, it's Brent, please. Don't hang up. His voice was raw, trembling. I know I don't deserve to ask you anything. I know what I did was wrong. We're losing everything. I'm going to prison. My life is over, please. Help me. I waited until he finished. Then I spoke evenly. Your mistake wasn't asking for money, Brent. Your mistake was locking your mother in a garage for 3 days. You nearly killed her. The doctor said she had 24 hours left. I didn't mean intent doesn't matter, I cut in. You did it. Now you face the consequences. You'll go to trial. You'll rebuild your life without any help from me. We're done. Dad, please. I'm not your dad anymore, I said quietly. Goodbye, Brent. Then I blocked his number. Not out of anger. Out of finality. By September 4th, the investigator's final report came in. No housing secured. Job terminated. Bail loan unpaid. Credit score collapsed. Civil aid denied. Every domino had fallen. That evening, Martha asked, How do you feel? Satisfied, I said after a long pause. Not happy. Just satisfied that justice is working. Do you think he's learned anything? He's learned that actions have consequences. Whether he understands why, I doubt it. She squeezed my hand. That's enough for me. Friday morning, Stone called again. You won't believe this. Brent's lawyer just offered to settle the civil suit. $5,000, a public apology, full admission of guilt, and a permanent waiver of inheritance. I was silent for a moment. That's everything they have, I said. Exactly. They're done. It's surrender. That evening, I showed Martha the printed proposal. What will you do? She asked. I traced my finger across the paper. I'm going to accept it. Not because I forgive him, but because this is what victory looks like. Monday, September 8th, our last day in court. Martha insisted on coming. I want to see it end. We arrived together, calm. Courtroom 3B was smaller, quieter. Judge Thomas Rodriguez presided. Case of Henderson versus Henderson, he said. Civil settlement approval. Stone presented the agreement. Chen confirmed. The judge turned to Brent. This is an admission of liability. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Brent said, barely audible. The settlement requires a formal apology. You may proceed. Brent unfolded a piece of paper, hands shaking. I, Brent Henderson, apologize to Clark and Martha Henderson for my actions. On August 15, 2025, I imprisoned my mother for approximately 72 hours, causing her severe harm. I take full responsibility. He sat down quickly. His words were empty. Legal, not emotional. The judge signed the order. This case is closed, Stone turned to me. We're done. In the hallway, Rachel Torres approached. Your son's pleading no contest. 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory counseling, and a permanent no-contact order. If he violates, he goes to prison, I nodded. Justice served. At 11 a.m., we attended the final plea hearing. Judge Morrison glanced at us, then at Brent. You understand you're accepting conviction? Yes, Your Honor. You understand violation means immediate imprisonment? Yes, Your Honor, the gavel fell. The case was over. As we exited, Brent and I crossed paths near the elevator, 10 feet apart. He looked at me, tired, hollow, defeated. His lips parted as if to speak. I simply looked back. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, just acknowledgement. Then I took Martha's hand and walked away. Behind us, I heard Della's voice break. 2 years? After everything, the elevator doors closed. That evening, Martha and I had dinner on the patio. Grilled chicken, salad, quiet conversation about small things, her book club, the Johnsons, a possible cruise in October. We didn't mention Brent. Later in my office, I opened my laptop. The folder labeled August 2025. I added the last files, the settlement, the plea, the sentencing order. Then I created a subfolder. Closed, September 2025. I archived everything. When I returned to the bedroom, Martha was asleep, peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I felt something pure, calm. It was over. Justice had been served. If you're new here, subscribe to Silent Revenge, because sometimes justice doesn't scream. It simply stands, quiet and unshakable, until the guilty are left with nothing but silence.